Mangwana ni mwalelepo vukenjani class vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Berry and Diana Master. How's your Friday started out, Diana?
It started out well, actually.
Yes.
It's Friday. What's not to love about
What's
a big
not
Friday?
to love about a big Friday?
How's your Friday going?
It's beautiful. It's all right. It's an anniversary day for me. Happy anniversary. So it's a fantastic one for me.
I'm happy for you. I love to hear that.
It's going to be good.
So let's get into what you can expect in today's broadcast. A cyclone kills 14 in Madagascar and Mozambique. In Burkina Faso, 43 artisanal gold mines closed for security reasons. Extradition treaty worries Rwandans in Mozambique. We're also going to be speaking to Mr. Mike Sichula in Zambia to keep us up to speed with all the latest that side. After the break, we get into our top stories.
Right, we start our top stories in Mozambique. Now, at least 40 people have died, 7 in Madagascar and 7 in Mozambique following a tropical cyclone. The number of people affected by Cyclone Freddy has also risen to 383,000 in Madagascar and more than 163,300 in Mozambique, according to the latest UN situation report. Even though the intensity of Cyclone Freddy was not as much as was expected, hundreds of thousands of people are in need of humanitarian assistance. Recovery will take months, Pascalina Di Sirio, the World Food Programme's representative in Madagascar, told the BBC. Flooding is unlikely in southern eastern Zimbabwe, as Cyclone Freddy did not extend as far inland as previously forecast.
Now in Burkina Faso, 43 artisanal gold mines closed for security reasons. The authorities of the Boucle de Mohun in the northwest of Burkina Faso have ordered the closure of 43 gold mining sites for security reasons as of Wednesday in this region plagued by jihadist violence. In an order dated February 27 and published Wednesday, Regional Governor Babo Pierre Basinga lists 43 artisanal gold mining sites in 13 communes that are closed until further notice. This responds to the need to limit or even reduce to zero the traffic of explosives on these artisanal sites, which are very often diverted to the benefit of armed terrorist groups, explained AFP, a security source contacted in the region. It is also a question of drying up the sources of income of these groups, some of which hold to ransom the mining sites which are beyond the control of the state, the source continued. Anyone contravening the provisions of the decree will face criminal sanctions, Basinga said. The Boucle du Mohun region, which borders Mali, is regularly hit by deadly attacks by jihadist groups linked to Al-Qaeda or the Islamic State.
Now, Rwandan refugees and asylum seekers in Mozambique voiced concern on Wednesday at the ratification and extradition treaty between the two African countries, raising fears that it will be used to persecute dissidents. The text, initially signed in Kigali in June, was formally approved by the Mozambican government on Tuesday, paving the way for ratification by Parliament. The Rwandan Senate ratified the treaty earlier this week. Rwanda is regularly accused of chasing after opponents in exile, a charge Kigali has always denied. Now, a number of Rwandan dissidents have been murdered or forcibly disappeared in southern Africa in recent years. A former Rwandan lieutenant was shot dead in a Maputo suburb in 2021, and in 2012, the body of the former head of Rwanda's development bank was found floating at sea off the capital. Mozambican government spokesman Filimano Swazi said that extradition treaty covers past and future crimes and sentences. Several thousand Rwandan refugees live in Mozambique, according to United Nations figures. Most settled in the country after the 1994 Rwandan genocide that cost the lives of some 800,000 people. Rwanda's President Paul Kagame has ruled with an iron fist ever since. The treaty targets genocide fugitives and other suspects as convicts.
Now getting into our next story, rare Madagascar bird feared extinct rediscovered. Ornithologists are celebrating the rediscovery of the dusky tetraka, an olive-colored yellow-throated songbird native to Madagascar that was last seen in 1999 and was feared extinct. The bird was once on the top 10 most wanted lost birds list after eluding scientists for 24 years. Now 3 of the rare ground-dwelling songbirds have been sighted in recent weeks during an expedition into the remote rainforests of northeast Madagascar. Excited ornithologists say the discovery may cause a rewriting of textbooks, as the birds were seen on rocky banks by mountain streams not previously thought to be its natural habitat. Scientists say this may explain why they haven't been seen or indeed heard for so long, as the sound of rushing water would have drowned out the birds' calls. The expedition team found them in 2 separate locations on the Maswala Peninsula and near Andapa.
Maybe the bird was in its eat, pray, love phase of its life, needing some alone time. Moving on, U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary at the Bureau of African Affairs, Robert Scott, will become the most senior U.S. diplomat to visit Zimbabwe since the coup that dislodged Robert Mugabe as president in November 2017. Scott, who is expected in Harare on Tuesday, will be in the country for 4 days amid a tense atmosphere while Zimbabwe gears up for elections later this year. The Zimbabwe government views it as a diplomatic victory. Livid Mugejo, the spokesperson for Foreign Affairs and International Trade Minister Frederick Shawa, said Scott would be shown the reform priorities of President Emerson Mnangagwa. In 2022, Zimbabwe was invited to the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit in Washington. Mnangagwa wasn't invited because he is on the U.S. targeted sanctions list and only travels to the U.S. on UN business. Even then, he is only allowed to travel within a 40-kilometer radius of the UN.
And now bringing us to the end of our top stories, New York to pay millions to protesters arrested at George Floyd demonstration. New York City has agreed to pay millions of dollars to demonstrators who sued the police department, saying they had been mistreated during a June 2020 racial justice protest that followed the killing of George Floyd. The proposed settlement will award $21,500 to each of the more than 300 people arrested in the Mott Haven neighborhood of the city's Bronx borough if a federal judge approves it. The 4 June demonstration was among numerous protests in New York City and around the country after the killing of Floyd, an unarmed black man who died on 25 May 2020 when a Minneapolis police officer pinned his neck to the ground with a knee for about 9 minutes. According to a class action lawsuit filed in 2020, New York police trapped hundreds of peaceful protesters in a strategy known as kettling before an 8 p.m. curfew took effect, and then initiated mass arrests using batons and pepper spray on some of the demonstrators. In a statement, the New York City Police Department said the demonstration occurred at a challenging moment when officers already dealing with the strains of the COVID-19 pandemic attempted to balance the right of people to protest with safety concerns. The total payments could amount to around $7 million, not including attorneys' fees, but a precise accounting has yet to be available. According to court filings, some protesters pursued individual claims and reached separate settlements, making them ineligible for additional payments.
Very interesting. It will be interesting to see if such was ever implemented every single time there are violent protests in Africa. Nevertheless, Africa, good morning. We'll continue bringing you the news as you need it. After the break, we take a trip to Zambia.
Active Kids is an initiative under the MyZone brand that aims to provide exciting and easy activities and fun stories. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na. Active Kids, where we actively invest in your future.
Now in Zambia, medical doctors have called off their planned go slow as the government has assured the doctors to address their labor dispute. Here to give us more on the story is Mr. Mike Sichula. Good morning, Mr. Sichula. Please take it away.
Thank you very much. Yes, the Resident Doctors Association of Zambia has called off its proposed go slow, which was supposed to take off on 1st March 2023. According to the association president, Muleshi Mpande, says the association has advised its members to work normally as they wait for government to address their concerns. Dr. Pande has attributed the porting of the Go-Slow to a meeting held with government where they were assured that their challenges will be addressed this month. So, according to resident doctors in Zambia, in the scale of J scale, get to $1,100 per month, which is higher compared to other civil servants within the same scale as teachers who get below $550. So it is yet to be established what concerns the doctors have for them to demand a higher pay or for them to demand improved condition of service. One of the other issues that is affecting doctors in Zambia is that the doctor-patient ratio is too wide because Zambia has less than 4,000 doctors against the population of over 19 million people. So it is one of those concerns that doctors are calling on government to employ more doctors so that this patient-doctor ratio is at least minimized to levels that are accepted by the World Health Organization.
All right, staying with the health industry, as the Zambia European Union Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Forum comes to an end today, President Hakainde Hichilema says his administration will favor local firms ahead of foreign pharmaceutical companies. Could you please expand on that?
Yes, the president did officiate at this forum, and during his speech, the president called on the local and international organizations that exhibited that there is need for the government of Zambia to have a bias in terms of offering contracts to local suppliers as opposed to engaging international suppliers who, according to him, are not transferring skills to Zambia so that they also know how to manufacture drugs. Because the challenge which is there is that there's been a lot of corrupt activities in the procurement of drugs from foreign nations, as well as also some of the drugs that have been procured outside have ended up being thrown from the warehouses because they have expired. And also some of the drugs are not reaching the intended purpose because of the duration that it takes for them to be imported into the country. Hence, the decision where the government thinks if the drugs are manufactured locally, it will be faster to distribute these drugs across the districts of Zambia so that people have access to medical drugs.
All right, now, Mr. Sichula, please tell us about a senior government official that was arrested in connection with the theft of 273 bags of maize.
Yes, Mr. Jimmy Piri, who is Rumezi District Commissioner. A district commissioner in Zambia is one of the high officers at district level. So he is accused of having stolen 273 bags of 50 kg bags of maize, whose value is close to $2,700. So he's not accused alone. There are two other Food Reserve Agency depot clerks that have been arrested together with him to help the police with investigations on how these bags were stolen from the depots. So police have since recovered 160 bags and investigations have intensified. The offense is alleged to have occurred on 24th February 2023 within Lumezi district in the eastern parts of Zambia.
Literally taking food out of people's mouths. Now, the Zambia under-21 men and women's hockey teams have pulled out of the Africa Cup tournament due to a lack of finances. Could you please tell us about this?
One of those side stories, because when you look at the Zambia hockey teams, this is a developing sport in Zambia, but despite it having been on the development level, the team has been able to qualify to major tournaments within Africa and beyond. But sadly, this time, the team has failed to raise 70,000 United States dollars, which is 1.4 million kwacha for the team to successfully participate at the Africa Cup of Nations that will be held in Egypt. So this is something that the association has been fighting tooth and nail to ensure that they mobilize the resources but the resources have not come forth, and it is something that the national team coach Freud Chomba said it is disappointing that the team will not travel to Egypt after putting in so much effort in training. The Honki Under 21 Africa Cup of Nations tournament, which serves as a qualifier for the World Cup, is set to run from 12th March to 19th in Egypt, a sad development for the Zambia Hockey Association.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Sichila, for giving us the latest news on the ground in Zambia.
Thank you very much. Do have a lovely weekend. Africa, good morning.
Africa, good morning indeed. Let's have a look at the weather predictions.
AgriMonitor is jou weeklikse landboukundige program wat jou die jongste nuus in die landbouverwante bedryf en onderwerpe wat daaraan gekoppel is, bring. Vir enige advertensie of nuusverwante navrae, kontak agrimonitor@synergy.com.na.
Heading into economic news on Africa, good morning. The governments of Eswatini and South Africa are planning to build more dams in the Komati River Basin for irrigation purposes. The Eswatini government that made the announcement said between 2 and 9 March, the two governments would engage the public in their review of the Komati River Basin Treaty. Through the treaty, the basin forms Maguga Dam in Eswatini, which provides 20 megawatts of hydroelectricity. The dam, which is also used for irrigation, is the biggest public works project ever in Eswatini. Now, on the South African side, the basin forms the Driekoppies Dam, which is used for irrigation projects in Mpumalanga.
Tanzania joins project financier Africa 50. Tanzania has become the 4th country in the region to be a shareholder of the Pan-African infrastructural financier Africa 50, expanding the institution's pool of investors to 34 and widening its access to capital for projects. Tanzania's Finance and Planning Minister Mwigulu Nchemba on Tuesday signed the share subscription agreement in Casablanca, Morocco, making Dar the 34th shareholder of the Continental Financier, joining among others Kenya, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
All right, that brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Up next, let's have a look at the sports update.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news and starting off with soccer news. The FA Cup first, it's the 5th round of the FA Cup that was concluded, and a big surprise, a huge upset in the 5th round. It is Grimsby Town that is in the quarterfinals for the first time in 84 years. It's a Grimsby Town that beat Southampton by 2-1 in the 5th round of the FA Cup. It's the first time since the 1938-1939 season that Grimsby Town is in the quarterfinals of the FA Cup. In the quarterfinals, they will play against Brighton. Other results in the 5th round is Manchester United that beat West Ham by 3-1. Then Sheffield United, too strong for Tottenham Hotspur. The score there was 1-0. Some of the quarterfinal matches will be played on the 18th of March. It will be Manchester City that will play against Burnley, and also Manchester United that will play against Fulham. Also in the English Premier League, 2 games that was played, and it was Arsenal that was too strong for Everton. Arsenal still contending for the Premiership title. They're still the leader in the Premiership. They beat Everton by 4-0. Everton still struggling and trying to avoid the relegation zone. And also Liverpool, they're too strong for Wolverhampton, and the score there was 2-0. Continuing with tennis news, it's a Dubai tennis tournament, the Dubai duty-free for men tennis tournament, the ATP Tour. That's continuing. Number 1 seed Novak Djokovic, easier second round for him that he had. He had a tough first round. Second round, he beat Talon Griekspoor of the Netherlands by 6-2 and 6-3. So he's through to the round of 16. Also Daniil Medvedev through to the next round, and then Alexander Zverev of Germany. He's the number 7 seed. He beat Christopher O'Connell of Australia by 7-5 and 6-4. Then the number 4 seed, it's Olib Alissimo of Canada. He's out of the tournament, the number 4th seed. He lost to Lorenzo Sonego of Italy. The score there was 7-6 and 6-4. Continuing international sports news with rugby news, and Six Nations have a break this weekend, but news from the Six Nations is that the France prop, his name is Mohamed Awes, he's out of the tournament. He will miss it because he's been suspended for 4 weeks. He was suspended because of a red card against Scotland the past weekend in France's win against Scotland. He had made head contact with Ben White, the Scotland player, when he cleared out a ruck. So he will be out for 4 weeks. He will miss the game this in 2 weeks' time. It will be on 11th of March that France will play England in London. He will miss that game, and he will also miss the game when France play Wales the next week after that. The other game this coming weekend, or the following weekend in 2 weeks' time, will be the 12th of March. Will be Scotland that will play at home against Ireland, and also that weekend Italy will be at home against Wales. Closing off today's international sports news with golf news, and it's on the Women's LPGA Tour, and it's co-sanctioned by the Sunshine Tour. It's a great tournament being played in Johannesburg in South Africa. It's the Joburg Open, Ladies Open. And the first round leader was Maya Falke. She is from Sweden. She came in with a round of 69. That is 4 under par. Par for that Modderfontein course is 73. Southern African interest, it is South African Nicole Garcia that also came in with a 71 in the first round, and Namibian interest, it is Bonita Bredenham that's also playing in the tournament. Her first round was a 77. That's the international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Region. For news-related or advertising queries, contact irongotalk@synergy.com.na. Irongo Talk, our community, your news.
In Business 7, you get news on current economic, financial, and business matters in Namibia. The weekly show features interviews with experts and in-depth analysis of burning issues in a way that caters for ordinary Namibians and business connoisseurs alike. For news-related or advertising queries, please contact b7@synergy.com.na.
You're still watching Africa Good Morning, but if you're just joining us, here are the news highlights. Cyclone kills 14 in Madagascar and Mozambique. In Burkina Faso, 43 artisanal gold mines closed for security reasons. Extradition treaty worries Rwandans in Mozambique. Rare Madagascar bird feared extinct rediscovered.
Those have been our stories. Don't miss the repeat of Africa Good Morning from 8:30, the same place that you found us this morning, DSTV 285, GoTV 94, oneup2.com, and all Namibia Media Holdings social media platforms. Until next week, the Shona say, Wakawonana Havashayane. Those who have seen each other can never lose each other. From Diana Master and Ashwin Berry, Swera Jaganaka.